Claire Noyelle. We've known each other for a very long time.
Yes.
Claire's absolutely amazing in what she does. So we've asked her to do this presentation today because I saw it at another networking group and it's really helpful. And I think mindset is a really important thing at the moment, Claire, isn't it?
It's essential. Your brain is the control panel for everything you do. So if your brain isn't in the right headspace, nothing you do is. So yes, it's absolutely essential.
Brilliant. Okay, well, look, I'm going to leave you to introduce yourself because, listeners, I just said to Claire, my plumber has knocked on the door between 8 and 6. He's arrived, and he's arrived bang on 12:30. So I'm going to go down and see to him, and I'm going to leave Claire to do the presentation. So fire away, Claire.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. So as Linda has said, my name is Claire Noyelle. I am inspired to change hypnotherapy. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist and also a pharmacist, slightly unusual in the alternative world of therapy. But I started life as a pharmacist. I've been an NHS pharmacist for 30 odd years, and I retrained in hypnotherapy 10 years ago. And while those two things sound extremely different, there is a lovely space in the middle where they cross over, because the things that pharmacy is not so good at supporting people with, so as Linda said, mindset, insomnia, confidence, the kind of more mental stuff, I find hypnotherapy really comes into its own. There are lots of different kinds of hypnotherapy, and I practice something called solution-focused hypnotherapy. It does use hypnosis, it's in the name, but it also uses a sequence of solution-focused questions, which are more in line with coaching and mental health training, as opposed to pure relaxation and hypnosis. So a lot of the way I work is about encouraging people to make the most of their brain, finding out a little bit more about what your brain needs to function at its best, what happens when it goes rogue, and how you can get it back on track. And there's a lovely analogy that I wanted to use today to explain that. So I have a very low-tech system here. So it'd be me talking, no slide deck, but I do have a whiteboard. So imagine that your brain, in its little box here, as a company. There are many different parts to your brain, and it helps to think of those as departments. There's lots of departments, there's managers, a CEO, and they're all trying to keep things running smoothly. This metaphor came up by a scientist called John Ratey. He's an American guy, and he uses this metaphor of the brain as a company to explain how different parts of the brain collaborate, compete, and communicate. Exactly the same as the departments in a company or an organization. So I thought if I talk about this from this point of view, this kind of corporate metaphor of the brain can show us a little bit more about how we can improve performance, how we can improve productivity, and how all of that ties in as performance management. So John Ratey describes the brain as a corporation with a set of specialized departments with different jobs. And success doesn't come from any one part being brilliant. It comes from how all those parts communicate, how they stay aligned, because their mission, their combined focus in life is you. And at the top of our mental company sits, I told you I had a very expensive slide. This, can you see it? Oh, let me get it upside down. This is our CEO at the front. I'm trying to line it up with the camera and I'm struggling. Why am I so stupid? There we go. Okay, so at the front here is your CEO. He is the prefrontal cortex, the part that makes you you. And if we're talking actually kind of located in your brain, this is the part right between your eyebrows. It's the part that makes you individually you. It's the part that makes us as humans different from each other, but additionally different from other animals. And I think about this region as being like the user interface of your brain, because this part, just like any CEO, handles the executive functions, the strategy, the decision making, self-control, and the organizing. And when the CEO has got clear information, when it's got emotional balance, decisions are smart, they're long-term, they're adaptable, and the budget is good. But like any CEO, he doesn't do every job himself. He just sets out the direction you want the company to go in, defines the objective and the mission statement, and then goes off to play golf. Okay, that's the CEO. Every company also needs Every company also needs HR and health and safety. This part together is known as your limbic system. It's at the bottom of your brain, the back of your brain. And it includes key areas like your hippocampus, which you can think of as being like Karen in HR. She holds all our terms and conditions, our SOPs, our patterns of behaviour, all the things that we do routinely, automatically, if you like. Health and safety across the end is your amygdala. Your amygdala evolved to respond to dramatic things in life like fire, flood, predators. But in our slightly more modern corporate world, you can think of health and safety as more used to spotting change in the environment, thinking about what might be a problem, referring back to the SOPs as to what you might do. And I like to think of mine as being called Bernard. He's got thick glasses, he's got a high-vis vest, and he's got a clipboard, and he knows what to do with it. So together with Karen in HR, Bernard manages emotions, he manages motivation, and he manages memory. And so when things are going as planned, Karen and Bernard are balanced. Company culture is healthy, morale is high, and people feel safe. But under stress or threat, and we'll come back to that later, when Bernard gets upset, HR, Karen, also panics, sending both of them storming into the CEO's office, taking over, making decisions that are based on fear, that are based on defensiveness, that are based on anger. And we've all seen that behaviour, both in companies and in our own human behaviour. There's other departments too. So let me get this right, honestly. Operations department on the side there, that could be the facilities management, I guess, the department responsible for the basic stuff, breathing, eating, reminding us to sleep. That's the department that keeps everything flowing, staff alive. That's the brainstem, which is that bottom part down here, and the basal ganglia. And that means that the CEO doesn't have to micromanage every step. He can leave the basics going, smooth operations. But if you change routine, if key staff aren't pulling their weight, the whole ops team's going to struggle and everything slows down. Remember, it doesn't matter how great the building is. If it loses power, it doesn't even matter how good your CEO is. Everything stops. And that reason is why physical health is non-negotiable for mental performance. And we'll come back to that later. Talking of movement and motions, for me, performance perspective, you've got this cerebellum, what I've called QC in my diagram, quality control. It's the very back of your brain. And that's responsible for fine-tuning performance, both in terms of your coordination physically. Clearly mine is off because I can't work out my left from my right. But it's also when your timing is off, when you're distracted. And then that's when our precision, when our attention to detail wobbles. Okay, so going back to our other key personnel, an essential role in any company is that of our PA. I've called her a VA here because maybe you outsource that role. And your VA or PA is famously super organised. And the role of a PA or VA is to turn all the creative ideas, the vague mission statements and plans of the CEO into reality. And it's her job, because of course it's a she, to recruit the right members of staff, to work on projects, to coordinate that project happening, ensuring those plans happen step by step. It's the secretary's job, the VA or the PA, to remind teams to hit deadlines, to turn work in. And in technical terms, that part of your brain is called your anterior cingulate. And you can think of it as being a go-between between the CEO and Karen and HR and Bernard. She knows where the biscuits are. She knows how to keep everything running smoothly and how to keep Bernard and Karen chilled. So when things are going well, all these areas work together seamlessly to ensure that you, the company, functions efficiently. But when there's stress, when there's a problem, when there's challenges, this finely tuned system is under pressure. Now, those pressures might be real. They could be legitimate financial, tax, economic challenges. Maybe they're physical challenges like damage to the office, us. Maybe key staff are off sick. Maybe they're imagined or hypothetical issues such as emotional problems, family stuff that is not linked to the business but comes into it. It could be deadlines that strip resources. It could be deliberations about moving property. There's all sorts of things that we think about that can impact our day-to-day functioning. And when we do that, The emotional HR team of Karen, aided and abetted by Bernard in health and safety, override our CEO. The company goes into survival mode. We have short-term decisions, tunnel vision, reactivity rather than proactivity. And that's the impact of stress on your brain. And as a result, on your brain, it's a stress on your business, a stress on performance. So the antidote to that, exactly the same as for any resilient company, is consistent communication from the CEO down to all the other departments. And not just that, but between the CEO in other industries, collaboration between different members of our networking group, different members of your team. Because the staff, and you remember, I've got my staff marked up here, they need to feel valued. Your staff need to feel like have purpose. They don't want to be bored. We need to have adequate challenge, but they need to have breaks. They need bonuses, they need perks, they need a holiday allowance. So in the same way as a FTSE 500 company, your brain needs exactly the same mix of stimulation, of reward, of nourishment, of relaxation, and good sleep to keep everything on track. So if we're talking about that in a corporate one, it's really easy to see how that works. But what does it look like in practice for you and your brain? For you to flourish and for your business to be successful as a result, it's essential to keep your brain and your body in the best possible condition. So when I work with my clients, one of the crucial things that I encourage them to do is to focus more on the positives in their day, noticing and prioritizing those positive actions, interactions, and thoughts that they experience throughout the day. Because not only does that mean that they feel brighter, they feel mentally uplifted, they feel engaged in life, but at the molecular level, those things ensure a constant flow of neurotransmitters, chemicals you'll have heard of like serotonin and dopamine. They're the things that your brain uses to communicate and run itself. You can think of them as being the internal emails, memos, and updates, if we're talking about that company analogy, that ensures that we stay in intellectual control. The CEO is updated. He knows what's going on with the rest of the team. He has got a proper perspective and he can adapt to the fast-moving, complicated world that we find ourselves in. And having that positive focus also means that we minimize the catastrophizing, the negative predictions that our negatively biased brains are prone to. Thanks, Bernard. We're less likely to react emotionally to things. We're less likely to react inappropriately. And we can more easily not just assess our own move, but make sure we get them. And there are lots of things that are essential for keeping your brain in the right headspace. The first one is sleep. And Linda and I were chatting about the best way to send out my relaxation audio for you to try. And I think probably the best way is for me to add the link at the bottom so that you can try that. Because proper sleep not only keeps all of your brain refreshed, rested, and in a good place, but it also helps us to minimize stress. We'll come on to stress a little bit later because there is so much more to looking after your body. But if I were to summarize it before going into some more details, the main things are keep the CEO well rested. He makes rubbish decisions if he's tired. Support the HR team. Emotional awareness, proper training, keeping the wheels on. Treat the operation staff well. Give them consistent habits and practices that keep them in a good place. Maintain the office. Keep your body running well with exercise, rest, and proper nutrition. Because when your internal workforce runs well, everything in life and in your business is on point too. So, which of your departments needs the most upgrading? Where do you need training? Where does it need better staff? Those are all the things that I help and support people with. It might be an uplifting communication. It might be updating those SOPs, creating new habits, new patterns of behaviour that support a healthier lifestyle, that support a more proactive brain. Maybe you need help and support with getting a better night's sleep. The audio is one step, but sleep is about way more than what we do in bed. Sleep is about all the things we do during the day that lead up to that. So I'm always happy to act as your business consultant and coach, but there are lots of other things that I can do. So literally, as a business consultant and coach for your brain and body, I work one-to-one with people. I help them feel more confident. I help them to relieve anxiety. I help them to better manage the stresses and strains, which could well have nothing to do with your business. They could be emotional, financial, spiritual, familial, relationship, all of that stuff. Keeping all of that to one side so that your brain can focus on looking after you, keeping the wheels on your business, and funding the rest of your lifestyle. But I also can go into companies, businesses, corporates, and talk to them on a more global stage about how to keep your literal workforce happy. Not just the internal workforce, but all of your staff feeling engaged, feeling resilient, feeling proactive, feeling confident, feeling like they have work to be done. I think it was Richard Branson that said, train your staff so well that they don't ever want to leave. That's kind of where we're going with this. Because if your staff, both internally and the others that you employ, are at their best, your business is going to be at its best. So I don't know if anyone has any questions in the chat, Linda. I don't know how much detail you want me to go into in terms of what I do one-to-one with people.
I've just had someone say that they love the way that you actually give each section of the brain a name. What made you come up with that?
Well, I can't take credit for it completely. There was a guy called John Ratey, who's a neuroscientist, who came up with the different parts. I've just elaborated it a bit because Bernard is always what I've called that kind of emotional, primitive, pattern-driven part of your brain. We've all had to deal with health and safety. They basically get in the way of us having fun. And for me, Bernard, that bottom primitive part of my brain is the same. You know, that Harry Enfield character, oh, I don't want to do it like that. That's how I think of as my primitive brain, because our primitive brain works only on emotions and patterns and habits. And so it's always going to do the same thing. Health and safety is exactly the same. We make decisions and we just stick to doing the same thing. So all of the different names there.
And do you find that, I mean, you know, somebody, you know, my age, a long-standing habits, I know what makes me sleep well. I know what I need to do in the day to sleep well. Sometimes I just don't do it. You know, and I'm sure that's the same as everybody. So what do you do, or how long do you need to work with someone who's my age to get them to get into those habits where they do what they know they're meant to do?
A brilliant question. It's a really nice thing to know that no matter how old you are, and you're not old, by the way, but however old you are, your brain is always capable of change. I've worked with people from as young as 8 up to 86. And even an 86-year-old brain is capable of changing and developing and picking up new habits. It does admittedly take a little bit longer to rewire a habit you've had for a long time, but it is possible. And the speed of it depends on how much effort and how much repetition people put into it. You all know what it's like. You do something once, you kind of know what you're doing. You do it again, you've got a little bit better. But by the time you've done that thing 10, 20, 30 times, now it's starting to become a habit. And it's the same for your brain. You can't do anything once and expect to be an expert. You have to keep going. So the people that make the quickest progress are the ones who put the work in, who focus on it and do it again and again and again until it sticks.
And do you find it helps someone to surround themselves with people like I tend to surround myself with straight talkers, and I like organized people. I've got a friend who's ultra organized.
Absolutely. There
Yeah.
is that old saying, again, I wish I knew who it was, is you are like the people you spend the most time with, the 5 people you spend the most time with. And it's true. We are uniquely designed as humans to pick up on everything else around us. That includes people. So the people that you spend your time with, I like to think of us as sending out emotional Wi-Fi. You can pick up on those signals. We bounce off each other. So you end up subconsciously picking up habits from those around you. So absolutely. One of the things I mentioned in that little presentation was that as the CEO, you should hang out with other CEOs in your same industry. So people, you know, from a brain perspective, from an industry perspective, mix it up. Spend time with people who do different things to you, but have the same drive, the same goals, the same ambition, because that's what helps keep us moving forward. There was somebody at one of the events I went to that was yours that was saying at the first event how nice it was to be surrounded by people who are self-employed because they get it in a way that his employed friends don't. And that is one of the big things for me at networking, is being with people who get the pressures you're under, who understand the things that drive us and who experience the same problems but know how to help you through them. I think that's a massive support.
I think it's and the support as well, because I'm finding I'm using more and more of the members for the things that I need. So I don't know if you know, but we're actually franchising now. And the fact that we're going down that route, I need people to do some of the day-to-day stuff.
Yep.
And it's really eased. I don't know who it's eased. I don't know whether it's Karen or Bernard actually, but it's really made me feel fantastic that I haven't got to worry about that anymore. All I've got to do is that, and then they do that.
Yeah, I didn't give my VA name, but if I did, it's Michelle. Everyone that knows Michelle Dowsett know that
Yes.
she is the most ruthlessly organised person. I don't know how she does it. So if my VA has a name, she is definitely Michelle. That's what I would.
She's actually the first VA I ever used, and strangely enough, I was the first person to ever use her when she came self-employed.
Yeah, no, she's the most organised person, and that is exactly it. Your VA. Look at my left and right side. She's the middle person between your CEO's instructions, like you said, go make it happen. This is what I want. The VA takes care of the details. She puts it on an internal mental whiteboard so that everybody else knows what they need to be doing. She's that link between the staff and then health and safety. So, yeah, talking clearly about your goals, your motivation, your aspirations, the challenges, gives your VA, your interior singular, that information that she can then look for opportunities to problem solve. And exactly like that, in that corporate analogy, your VA is there going, right, this is what you want done. Who am I going to get to do it? Who's the right person? How do I speak to them? When do I do that? That prioritizing in that internal kind of workspace, that's all down to your VA.
And what do you find is the main thing that people come to you with? I mean, obviously you offer a whole range of things. Is there some one thing that maybe you find that more business people come to you with than any other?
If you're talking business owners, and I've worked quite a bit with business owners, I would say it's kind of overwhelmed. They know what they want to do. They have big plans, but they can't break down that great, big, enormous goal into workable chunks. It all just feels overwhelming. And that's true of anything, isn't it? So you just need to take things one tiny step at a time. So engaging our inner VA, making sure that we don't upset Karen and Bernard that are in the health and safety and HR, and that we've got the workforce has got a clear plan, that makes it easier. So from a business perspective, I would say overwhelm. In terms of my own practice, I've also got like a specialism in neurodivergence people, so often kids, but also neurodivergent adults whose brain works slightly differently. You've got to learn how to make that work for you. And then from a pharmacy perspective, it'll be people wanting to reduce their dependency on medication, prescribed or recreational.
And have you found, because there's been a lot of, so for example, people that I know that I've known for years and years have been saying to me, and it's only been, I've only noticed it, maybe it's been longer, but I've only noticed it, I would say in the last year. I've just found out I've got ADHD, and it explains so much.
Yeah, had that conversation with somebody, exactly that conversation this morning. She was taken aback and a bit surprised by it because she's a successful business person. But she said exactly as you've done, now it makes sense why I can either be obsessed with something or struggle to get started, because those are all slight differences in how your brain works. Having a brain that is ADHD or autistic isn't necessarily wrong or a disadvantage, it's just different. You could think of it as having a phone that runs on iOS, Apple, or Android. They're both brilliant. They both do amazing things, but they have different operating systems. So I love working with people like that and getting them to work out which particular operating system their brain has, what apps they need to make it work for them. It's a big thing. And I think a lot amongst the self-employed community will be ADHD and neurodivergent because we find we don't like working for other people. We want to work how we want to work. So I don't think it's a surprise that more and more business owners, self-employed people, are suddenly going, oh, that's why I didn't fit in that corporate environment. That's why I didn't feel at home in that company.
We interviewed someone on the radio show last month, and she was only told this year that she was autistic.
Mm.
And she said to a friend, Have you seen any signs of me being autistic? And her friend said to her, I thought you knew you were.
Yeah, sometimes it is obvious, and sometimes having that label is almost like the last piece. But I think until you talk about it, you don't realise that that's not how everyone's brain is.
Mm,
So I think if you've got an ADHD brain and you come from a family that also have an ADHD brain, that's normal for you. So
mm.
it's not until you come across somebody else who doesn't think in that way that you might realise you were different. I think the same is true when you're autistic as well.
And that now I think is an advantage to business owners, don't you? Because what you're finding is that people with autism are starting to go to people with autism because they understand the way their brain works.
Yes, and I think this is where small businesses who can be flexible and who can really cater to people that get that is where it's really key, really key. Because as I said to you before, I think people with a slightly different brain find it better to work on their own. They can work how they suit, so it can be hours that suit them. And I think that makes them uniquely sensitive to understand their clients who are the same. So absolutely, I think it can be a big advantage.
And so do you, from a business perspective, you're happy obviously working with all neurodiverse
Oh,
companies?
absolutely. It's, I know that thing is, oh, always have a niche for your clients, but I don't have an ideal client because I work with so many different types of so many different things. The main thing I want about my clients is that they're motivated to make a difference. That's the only ideal client I need. But absolutely, whether you're autistic, whether you're ADHD, whether you have both, I've worked with younger people that have oppositional defiant disorder or all sorts of issues with their brain. And the nice thing is that they're not an issue with their brain. It's just a tweak in the user manual. They just need to know how to make their brain work for them.
Right. Okay. That's amazing, Claire. And I mean, you've been doing it a long, long time. How many years have you been doing this now?
This is 10 years now. 10 years I've been working in hypnotherapy, but obviously the science side of it comes from my pharmacy background, and I've been doing that for 35 years.
Mm, that's amazing.
I love
Wow.
it. It's a really nice crossover. So I would love to hear from anybody that thinks I might be useful in helping them understand their brain. If you have got a neurodivergent brain, learn how to use it. You know, a lot of people have ADHD are full of ideas. They've got a Ferrari brain, but Ferrari engine, but bicycle brakes. Trying to control it and corral it is a challenge. So yes, definitely let's do some work on that.
I love all the analogies you're using there, Claire. I think it's really good. I love the phone analogy. I thought that was really, really good.
I find it easier because I love the science. I'm completely nerdy and I love all the neuroscience, but I know that not everyone does. So I like to find ways that make sense to people. So if you've ever come to see me in my cabin, you'll know that I've got all the inside out characters because that's another brilliant metaphor. I like explaining your brain in non-brain terms. It's easier to get there.
Yeah, yeah, brilliant. Okay. So have you so the other thing I'd like to know is if you got one part of your brain that isn't quite working well, so if Bernard wasn't working well, does it disrupt everybody?
Yeah, if Bernard is a little bit trigger happy, yes, it will, because he never makes great decisions. Your primitive brain is great for responding to things like fire, flood, predators, all out danger. But very rarely, in a business capacity or a personal capacity, are we dealing with something that is a clear and present danger. It's more likely to be a just gradual increase in our stress levels. I talk about us having a stress bucket, and into our stress bucket goes all the stuff that we worry about, real, imagined, present, past, and future. But the more that incrementally creeps up, the more your brain goes, wow, we're in trouble. We should turn on survival mode, that fight or flight thing that we were gifted as cavemen, but is not really particularly well suited to dealing with modern life. It's great for polar bears. That's the analogy I usually use, but it's not any good for dealing with emails. And it's definitely not the kind of part of your brain you want in charge when you're trying to close a business deal or when you're trying to do your marketing. You need to be intellectually in control, taking it step by step and in maintaining that intellectual, intelligent, adaptive part of your brain. Bernard's great in a crisis, but it's got to be a physical crisis. He's out of his depth if there's anything else more complicated.
Yeah, so it's really Michelle that's the one that you need to get you all organised and get your ducks in a row, isn't it?
Absolutely. She is the queen of the ducks.
Okay, so how can people get hold of you then, Claire?
I'm not hard to find. I'm Inspired to Change. If you go onto the Inspired to Change website, it is literally inspiredtochange.biz. You'll find all of me. There is three of us in Kent, me, Emma, and Ben that work in Kent. There's a whole collection of therapists, but I'm Maidstone. So if you go on there, you can either click by name or you can click by location, and you'll find me on the website. There's loads of stuff you can get on the website, blogs I've written, more about how I work, and so on. I'm also on Insta as Inspired to Change _Claire, and I'm on Facebook as Inspired to Change Maidstone.
So tell me a little bit about what you're giving to the listeners today that you're going to leave in the comments below.
It's my bespoke relaxation audio. Anyone that's ever had that busy, whirring washing machine brain of everything churning around before you go to sleep, because you mustn't forget this and you need to remember that, and I've got to email that person, that gets in the way of us being able to switch off and sleep. And so the idea behind the audio is that it's very gentle music, some beautiful visual stuff that just gives your brain something to focus on so that it can turn off, relax, and lead you into sleep. And I can put it's what I use in session for the relaxation element, and it's what I would use to get to sleep with as well. So I'll pop that in the link underneath. You can find it on the website too.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much for your time today, Claire, and thanks for love your presentation.
My very high-tech presentation that I can't work out my left from my right.
Yeah, but we all understood it, so that's the main thing.
It's been great to see everyone. If anyone has any questions, you know how to find me. Just drop me a quick DM. And I should tell everyone that my initial consultation is free. It won't cost you anything to come and have a chat with me. Please do.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Claire. Take care now.